I'd like to introduce David Pasikov. David began his career as a science teacher in urban Detroit. With that foundation, he helped initiate and later became the executive director of a residential school for troubled teens in Ontario, Canada. From there, David went on to a 25-year-long private practice as a psychotherapist in Boulder, Colorado, which included serving a term as president of the Colorado Association of Psychotherapists. From 2005 to 2018, David taught advanced communication courses to senior executives and managers in the international high-tech sector. One of those courses was entitled Leaders as Coaches. David ultimately realized that coaching would be an ideal next step in his career path, and he went on to earn his certification as a coach. He has since worked with a wide spectrum of clients, from college students to couples in crisis, and from a former Heisman Trophy winner to a Silicon Valley innovation pioneer in all aspects of life, relationship, and business coaching. David and his wife, Susan, live in Big Rapids, Michigan, where he continues his coaching practice while also serving as the U.S. coordinator for Life Alignment, a system he uses to help clients remove blockages in their lives and reach their full potential. For more information, you can visit www.life-alignment.com or David's website, www.pasikov.com, and that is Pasikov.com. So with that, I'm honored to introduce David as his first time speaking with us. We welcome you, David. And we're going to hear tonight an introduction to the life alignment system of energy healing and transformation. So with that, welcome, David, and I'll turn the floor over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Everything that I've just listened to is absolutely in alignment with what I personally believe to be true and what we teach, so much so. I wasn't planning on showing you this presentation, but let me share with you some slides out of the introductory class to life alignment that just makes that point. Just give me a quick sec. Can I share screen?
Yeah, hold on. I have to make you a co-host for.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
And for that. You know what? I just decided I can't find the co-host, but I can allow participants to share screen, so you should be good now.
Thanks, buddy. So just as I was listening to this, I brought up on my computer some of the slides that I use in my introductory class. So I love her because really when we're talking about energy healing, we're talking about frequency, and when the tone from the opera singer makes the wine glass vibrate, then it can shatter. But when your founder was talking about bringing people into your frequency, if I have a piano with a guitar beside it and I hit like the D string on the piano, then the guitar resonates at that frequency, that string begins to vibrate too. So I was really interested in what he was saying. And here's another one. Because we're all light workers. I love that reference. So part of how I teach this work is if I'm walking in the woods with a friend of mine and he slips into quicksand, sorry. The last thing that he needs me to do is jump in after him. So I find the magic rope in the woods. I don't give him the rope, because if I give him the rope, he can drag me in or he can wrench it out of my hands. So I tie the rope around a tree and then I throw him the rope and I help himself get out of the quicksand. And for me, tying the one end to the tree is connecting to source, God, spirit, life, whatever you want to call it, because that truly is the healer. And once I've made that connection to that level of frequency, then I can allow myself to be a conduit to allow healing frequency to uplift the other person. And so let me get out of this. And before we go any further, as Steve mentioned, I'm from this area originally. Susan grew up in Big Rapids. And years ago, she introduced me to Carl Franklin, who I had have a great deal of respect for. And then recently, we've been joining in on Bonnie and Linda's group for the Seekers and for the meditation group. And we had a chance to take Steve's one evening workshop with Steve and then a weekend workshop recently. And it's really heartwarming for me to be able to find community here, because I was able to build a sense of community deeply in Boulder. And we moved here 5 years ago to help look after Susan's mom, and then just put roots down here and stayed. And having connection with the three of those people and now with you just is really heartwarming for me. And I'm very deeply thankful to have this opportunity tonight and to share more experience with you over time. So I thought the best way that I could walk you through this system of energy healing is to put together a slideshow for you on PowerPoint. So we can breeze through that fairly quickly. So the reality is that all of us are healers. We all do healing through our hands. And what life alignment is a specific system that gives us a structure by which to do it effectively. And so the system was developed by my very close friend, Jeff Levine. Jeff lives in South Africa. We met in Canada in the late 70s at this residential school for troubled teens that I helped found in just outside of Windsor, about 80 miles east of Windsor. And Jeff and his wife and 2 kids came for a weekend visit. Their daughter got the chicken pox, and 3 days turned into 3 years. And in the course of that time, I consider Jeff my closest male friend. And Jeff's one of the true spiritual healers that I've met in my life. He's got the ability to tap deeply into his intuition. And he's also studied a lot of different holistic health modalities. And so here was a man who knew how to go into a deep level of meditation and connection, who had this background. And the system of energy healing just began to become known to him consciously over time. And he's the first one that would say that it's inspired, and he received it as a download. So we currently teach this in several countries around the world. And I'm privileged to be able to play a role in the international community, just helping bring things together. With my education background, I've been involved with the educational materials right from the beginning and curriculum, but also just our international coordinators and that kind of thing. So it's a role that I play, and I'm thankful to be able to do that. So it's comprehensive. We've got this introductory class that we call the foundation class. And that's followed by 7 modules. And then there's tools that Jeff has created called Vortex cards and tools. And I'll touch into that as well. And then there's application for not just treating people physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because the system respects that we're multidimensional, but we can also balance spaces and organizations. So in the intro class, these are the 2 vortex cards that we use for balancing, although we teach people how to balance with their hands. We teach them how to use a pendulum to scan lists that I'll show you later, how to do muscle testing. And not everybody comes from a counseling background, so we brought elements of coaching into it so that we can teach people the skills and making it safe to be with another person and safe to be in their energy field. So you can see on this little graphic, and I'll be more specific later, that there's these different access points that Jeff has discerned for different organs and systems in the body. Like that's the contact point for skeletal system, muscular system, joint system, digestive system, respiratory system. We also have points for the chakras, meridians, subtle bodies. And so these vortex cards, originally Jeff created them to be able to help the students raise frequency, because he realized that not everybody that he was teaching had access to the healing frequencies that he had. So these initial cards were developed to put on some of these gateways or access points that I was showing you. Sorry, don't mean to jump around, in these positions. So you can place different cards that have different frequencies to help augment the healing process. And so there's a course that's been developed on this, because we found that they could not only be used to balance people or animals, but they also could be used to balance spaces. And the next slide is an illustration of that. So I know this looks weird, but this gentleman is a man named Thornton Streeter. I met him and hosted him in Boulder. He's developed a way to read the body's energy field using lighting and the light that comes off the body through a specific program that he and another person developed on a computer. And so he's got his shirt off so that you could see. And so areas of green are high frequency, areas of red and orange are low frequency. And so this is a picture of him just holding an empty hand to his head as if he was holding a cell phone. And so you can see his brow chakra. This is what we calls the chakra view. Throat chakra is prominent, but they've got a little bit of orange and red in them. And so he was shocked when he saw this picture, because now he's making a phone call with his phone without any kind of a shielder on it or a protector. And you can see how it's just scrambled his field. And then we use one of the life alignment vortex cards for cell phones on his phone. And he was shocked. He said, this is basically the return to this. But he said, look how much clearer my brow chakra and my throat chakra are compared to the discoloration in the before. So we're in the process of applying for grant money to do more research on the benefits of the vortex cards, but this was our first foray into it. And then with home alignment, we take the blueprint of a person's home and identify the heart center, which usually isn't in the middle. It's usually over here someplace. And then just found this flow path of energy that circulates throughout the house. And we sketched that out. And then using a pendulum or muscle testing, one of the one of the people that lives in the house, we just go along the flow path until we find a weakness, and then we balance that using vortex cards or other modalities, maybe like rearranging the furniture or doing something that could ground it, like bringing in plants or a water feature. And so that's another service that we provide. And then building on that, he found that he could take the organization chart of an organization or even a family and look at the connections between the different elements and see where there's low frequency. And then there's a whole procedure that we can go through to balance that and increase greater flow within the organization. I'll tell you a quick story about Susan's house here in Big Rapids. I was doing this, a balance on her house. And in this corner of the house, what this isn't the house, but say it was, I got that there was a blockage of energy. And this was her laundry room. And she thought, and I thought, that maybe the blockage of energy was that she just had some bags of plastics and stuff to take to the recycle area. So that's all we thought of it. But 3 years later, she had a handyman come in and help do some repair work on the drywall here.
The
And when
house
we
was
took-
built in 1899 and had some energetic problems, we should say. So go
Go
ahead.
ahead, finish it up.
The handyman came in and took down a wall, and there was a door to the outside that had been covered probably for 50 years with siding, like just aluminum siding on the outside of the house. And it had been covered over with drywall on the inside, and we had to take that down. So there was an entire door there that was where the blockage was found. I'm muting myself now, Doug.
Thanks, son. So that's an illustration. So I want to go back to this slide because in addition to vortex and home alignment and organization alignment, most of our work is one-on-one with a person. And like I said earlier, we respect that each of us is composed of a physical capacity, an emotional realm, a mental capacity, and we say that we're a human being, that there's a human side of us and the being side of us, which points to the spiritual level. And so we could have blockages of stuck energy, like your founder was talking about, that can come from unresolved issues, unresolved traumas, limiting belief, self-sabotaging programs, even glommed on negative energy. And so as practitioners, following that principle of life being the healer, we follow a protocol that allows us to scan different sheets to find out where the person's priority is. So what I mean by that is each of these body points in all of the 7 modules, depending how far the person has studied, are all organized on a priority list. And so let's say that the priority is skeletal system. If that's the first thing we do is we check for permission because we never impose this. And we muscle test to get permission. And then let's say that I get skeletal system as the priority, then I'll interview the client to ask him or her, why do you think that's coming up for them? And if it was me being treated about a month ago, I would have said my lower back because I was doing yard work, tripped and fell awkwardly and wrenched my lower back. And so if Susan was working on me and got lower back, she would touch the area of my back that was sore. The muscle test would go weak. She'd connect that to this skeletal system priority point, which we call the folder now, and just gently touch the top of my head, which is a way of signifying to the body-mind continuum that these are the areas that we're working on when we're starting to do energy work. Once we do that, so we've got some starting points at the physical level, and this is a chart for the first three classes, the foundation class and module 1 and module 2. And then we certify, there's a certification process to become a life alignment practitioner after module 2. And to make it simple, Jeff has divided the body into 5 zones. Zone A is colored red on this chart. And so from the base of the rib cage to the toes is zone A. Zone B here, zone C where skeletal system is. Zone D around the head. And top of the head is zone E. And there's also a zone F for meridians, different levels of the subtle energy bodies and chakras. And then there's more that we add as we go through the work, different subtle energy bodies and going through 12 chakras. We bring in the race system through Alice Bailey's work as well. So there's some precision to this system. And so we've got access point, just going back to this model or this makeup example. So we got some vertebrae here. We've brought them into the skeletal system folder. We've entered it. And then as a practitioner, I just have to bring that back so I can go to the next slide. So as a practitioner, then there's this list of 3,000 emotions and fears. And so there's an emotional component that can come up. I was working on a woman this afternoon, and she's been under a lot of strain, and that cloud is just lifted. There was a lawsuit, and she prevailed, but I had to help her just update her files that threat was over, because in my trauma study, we know that trauma can stay stuck in the on position, and that we say in this work that the issues can be held in the tissues, so that there's a cellular memory of unresolved issues, unresolved traumas. And so with her, one of the emotions that came up, as I recall today, was liberation. Another one was freedom. And another emotion that had to clear was feeling jaded, because she's an open-hearted person, but this, what she saw as an unjust lawsuit was jading her viewpoint of other people. And in our work together today, we helped shift some of that. And another list that we look at is this list, of different parts of a person's life, like security or self-confidence, or relationship with God, or so that gives us a little more data to work with. And one of our teachers in the UK has written these 2 books on life alignment. If anybody's interested in learning more about life alignment, I'd suggest this first one is, if you went on Amazon and just searched for life alignment, this book will come up. And that's the first one I'd suggest. And then she took it to a deeper level with this second book, The Healing Power of Life Alignment. And like Steve mentioned, this is our website. And then if you want to experience life alignment, I'm happy to offer anyone a free half an hour session. In anyone that may be listening to the recording or here tonight. And so if you want to contact, write down my phone number. That's my phone number. That's my website. And that's my email. And just in the last month, this book has been released that I helped co-author. I got a intuitive hit about 6 months ago to go on to LinkedIn, which I'm in, but I very rarely go to it. But I had a nudge from Spirit to go look at it, and there was this author on LinkedIn that sent me a message, explained to him that he had his assistant scour LinkedIn for 25 coaches from around the world that he could invite to co-author a book on coaching, and I was one of the ones that he selected. And so it's a book for coaches or people that are interested in coaching, but I think it's good for anyone who's in some sort of a healing profession with other people. And even so, I wrote my chapter on transforming stress into strength, and that's most of my top tools on how to manage stress in, I think, 14 pages. So the Kindle version is $2.99 and the paperback is $19.99. So that's my presentation. And thank you for allowing me to share this with you. I think we got some time for questions and answers. Do we, Steve?
Yes, we do. Thank
thanks,
you.
Jesse.
Thank you so much, David.
Yeah. Thanks.
Very interesting. And we would like to open it up to anyone who has questions or comments. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Amira.
I was wondering, in either of the two books, do they have the charts that you were showing us with the bodies?
Not in detail, but since we're friends, I'm happy to offer that to you if you want to look at it.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it may not mean much because there's, this whole system. And, I've studied a lot of different techniques as well, and I respect everything. For me, there's all these energy tools, Reiki, etc., are all spokes to the same hub. And we say different strokes for different folks, and boring on that, we could say different spokes for different folks. So this is just the one that I've been drawn to. And although I've studied other techniques, this is the one that I've stuck with. And as you can tell by, we started off with one class and now there's several. The work continues to grow over the years, and I've not reached a ceiling with it. And even though I've been doing this since 1991, so a lot of years.
Connie has a question. Connie, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you so much, David. This is extremely interesting. I am a certified sound therapist
Wonderful.
with tuning forks.
Beautiful.
And so your modality is, like you say, you said it beautifully just now, is another tool. I guess my question would be, when you're doing a session, is there, and you talked about the cards,
Yeah.
do you actually at some point lay hands on a client? And I was kind of getting the impression like you would go like using two areas
Exactly.
to make a connection between
Absolutely.
the meridians. Is that what you're?
Well, let me go back to PowerPoint and I'll show you.
Okay.
That's a brilliant
Thank you.
question. And also, Connie, I've used life alignment. I use life alignment with my coaching practice, I use it. I used it with when I was doing psychotherapy as a form of body-centered psychotherapy. I've taught hypnotherapists how to use life alignment with a hypnotherapy practice. So you can blend this with a lot of other modalities. So let me just go back to
Well, and that was a good point because I was thinking about that with the tuning forks and
exactly.
finding the blockage using your concept, but then adding the tuning forks to frequencies to release the blockage, break it up, or raise the vibration of a blockage.
Exactly.
We have, thank you.
Yeah, that's everything that, we're on the same wavelength. Like I said, with the piano
Okay.
and guitar, what we're doing is raising frequency to release blockages. And so it's actually quite, as a practitioner, when I was in Boulder, I, in a very busy practice, I could see 8 people in a day. And I wasn't depleted at the end of the session because this universal current was moving through me. If I do it from my ego, then I block off that current. But if I do it being like a midwife to the process, then I'm uplifted by that current as well. And I'm not depleted. So let me just go back to this PowerPoint. And so let me make this a little bit bigger. So you see these starbursts here? They're in the locations of chakras. And so we do lay on hands when we're balancing the emotional component of this. And so we choose any 2 of these 6 as a pair. So it could be this number 3 and number 6, or any combination. When we're using the cards, over the locations of the chakras, but also over minor chakras on the wrists, elbows, shoulders, the rib cage, the hips, the knee, the ankle on both sides, and actually over the jaw joints as well. And so there's a protocol to discern which vortex centers we use with which cards, either spun clockwise or counterclockwise. I don't want to go too much into the weeds, but we do use our hands. And if I'm visiting someone in a hospital, I've got all this on my phone, but if I forget to bring my cards with me, I'm not stuck. Before we had the cards, we taught that if you've got a body point that's in zone A, colored red, I just use my hands above correction points 1 and 2. If I've got something in this zone of zone B that was in orange, I use my hands above correction points 2 and correction points 3. For zone C, I use correction point 3 and 4, zone D, 4 and 5, and zone E, 5 and 6. So yeah, there is a balancing process that goes along with it. Once you find all that information, then there's a process to help the person clear it, like I did with this woman this afternoon. So, as someone who's used it as an adjunct for coaching or psychotherapy, if something shifts for me at the physical level, that's a bonus. I'm really helping people get unstuck and help them move their lives forward. So in a sense, I'm using this as a guide to help a person be congruent on their spiritual path. That's really what my focus is in doing the work, is to support someone on their journey through life. But there's times when radical changes happen at the physical level. Would you like a whiz-bang story just because it's my best whiz-bang story?
Sure.
Of course.
So
Yes.
I started teaching in California and seeing clients in California. And the way I built up my practice in Boulder was word of mouth. But then I started using meetup groups, and I set up a meetup group in California. And a friend of mine brought a woman to the meetup group. She was late, and she was like this. Her whole left side of her body was like this. And she walked with a limp and a cane. And every time she put pressure, her weight on her right knee, it caved in. And so she kind of walked like this. And in the meetups, I would always do a demonstration, but it wasn't right because I just used my intuition or a pendulum or self muscle testing to see who should come on the table. It wasn't her, but we went out to dinner that night together with my friend. And she explained that 40 years previously, she was crossing the street in Ireland and didn't look the correct way and got hit by a car and was in a hospital for about 4 months, repairing all the bone damage from that accident. And so 40 years later, she comes in the next day. She's on my table, and I'm using my charts. I'm doing the balancing. But before I did it, because the structural issues were really prominent, I checked her leg length. I just stood in front of her. She was lying on the table, and I just put her feet together. And usually there's an imbalance like this, but it was like this for her. And I had to put her hands over her heads. And also there was this huge gap, and her hips were out of balance as well. And there was a really powerful energy that moved, remarkably so. And we finished, and I brought her ankles together again, and they were like this. I didn't touch her, but her whole structure shifted. She hadn't touched her big toes together in 40 years. And she just started to cry. And I brought her to the point where she was seated at the table, and she kept saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I just said, well, I was curious if her knee was going to be different because I'd worked a little bit on it. It was improved, but what I saw amazed me. And there was a mirror in the corner, and I just beckoned her to go into the corner of the room. And I put my hands on her shoulders. She was shorter than I am. And I expected it to be like this, but it was like you could put a level on her shoulders. And she kept saying, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I said, stop. Believe it. I said, you've been praying and meditating and going to practitioners for 40 years looking for an answer. I said, have you ever had the experience of trying to open up a mayonnaise jar and you can't open it and you hand it to your friend and she just goes like this? I said, I'm not downplaying what I've done, but I'm just in the right place at the right time with the right tools to build on all the work that you've done to loosen the jar. And this healing current moved in and shifted you. I worked with her a couple more times, and she threw away her cane. That's the most dramatic story that I can share, but it just shows me the power of the healing process. That life is the healer, and we're a partner in the healing process as a practitioner, and we're a partner in the healing process as the client. And she had done the work to be in position to make a change. And so whether it's clearing trauma at the emotional level or limiting beliefs, what I love about this system is that it's got a vocabulary to support a person on any of those levels. So what I'd like to offer any of you, I think I mentioned it, is if you want a free half-hour session, I'm happy to give you one just if you want to experience this. We can do it over Zoom. And I certainly don't want to detract from any of the other healers in this room. I respect everybody. I'm not trying to any way detract from anybody else's work. But if you're curious about learning this system and you want to experience, or if you have something you want to work on, I'm happy to be a resource as part of the group.
And you could contact David directly, or if you don't have the information, you could contact one of us and we could get in touch with David, Darcy, or myself, or Alan. Connie has another question, it looks like. Connie?
I just wrote my phone number
Okay.
in chat.
I'd
Oh.
hate to be the one to take up all of your time, David.
That's fine.
I'm curious about the cards.
Mhm.
I thought you had mentioned that they are like preloaded with vibration.
Yes.
Did I get that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can
So-
explain how in a minute if you like.
Okay. And then the second question is, you can do your practice through Zoom?
Oh yeah.
Did
Yeah,
I hear
this,
that?
this
Okay.
works. Yeah. I've got a client in Thailand. I've got a client.
Yeah, because I'd like to get a hold of you and set something up for half an hour and explore it.
Sure.
So,
And-
yeah.
My phone
And
number is
before you
in
explain that, David, I had a question on the cards too. Maybe you could explain that as you're talking about them. Are they like related like to the archetypes like you might see in a tarot deck or anything like that, or are they on their own?
Funny you should mention that. We just have our new life alignment deck. Let me pull a card. Let's see what it says. And they're based on the vortex cards, and this one is based on this vortex card that we use for balancing in the first class. And this one says, "I take care of others by nourishing them with love, respect, and freedom. I also take care of my own needs to be free and to replenish my own forces of love." So we do have those kinds of cards, but since we were talking about this card, I don't know if you can see it, but sandwiched within the card is a magnetic strip. And like I said, Jeff follows his guidance. And he was living in Toronto, had a retreat center at a cottage on a lake about 2 hours north of Toronto. And he converted the boathouse that's right on the lake into a little workshop studio for him. And this is going back about 25 years. And Jeff, as an architect, was really concerned about the impact of electromagnetic fields on computers. This was before cell phones were all that popular. And, his office in Toronto was, a few feet away because he was on the third floor from one of those big transformers and power lines. There was a subway station down the road. And so he found an outfit in California that sold a brick that kind of looked like a computer power supply that you could plug your computer into. And with this pendulum, he could see that it negated the electromagnetic frequencies of the computer, but that back then cost $500. And so he was meditating, and he got this inspiration to walk a couple hundred yards up to the kitchen in the house and get a magnetic strip off his fridge, the little word "the," and he came back into his studio and he placed it in his hands, and this powerful current moved through him. And I've witnessed him do this, and the first time I saw him do this, I described it to other people as the most powerful experience that I've had in my life, other than being at the birth of my son. And because the room just filled with energy. And his impression is that energy gets held in the magnetic strip in much the same way that a homeopathic remedy is held by the sugar or the alcohol in solution. When you take a homeopathic drop or you take a homeopathic little pilule. And so there's these two cards that we use for balancing, like I described earlier. And I showed you the effect on this with the cell phone card. And if you go on to, I'll write this in chat too, just give me a sec. Hang on. Our website is www.life-alignment.com. If you go onto that website and click shop, then you can see the different vortex cards that are there and how you can use them to help yourself and others. This particular card is called the Octagon card, and it helps release unwanted energies out of homes or offices, the kind of stuff that you would sage a place for. And so when I had my office in Boulder, I had one of these on my door, just so that I could keep myself clear and clear unwanted energies out of the office. But I can teach you a process in life alignment that we can do together where you can clear your own auric field of unwanted energy. Let's say, you're with a client that's really parasitic and you just want to move them out of your energy body. This particular process that we'll do for just a few minutes helps raise the frequency of your energy body to release unwanted influences and also to bolster your shielding in much the same way that you taught us the process that you teach, Steve, when we took the shaman workshop for you. This is just another way of doing it. So you put one hand on the navel. We can do it together if you want. And you put your other hand on the top of your head. That's the code to balance this unwanted energy, which we call foreign energy in the system. Then just move your hands a little apart and move energy from your palms and fingers to your navel with one hand and to the crown of your head with the other. And we'll just do this for maybe a minute. And then we can just relax. So I see that we're out of time. I want to just express my heartfelt appreciation for coming in contact with my three friends that are here to gain a continued sense of spiritual community. And I'm thrilled, as I know Susan is as well, to meet the rest of you and to share in this larger community. And my guess is that this is not the last time that you'll be seeing us. So we're thrilled to have made connection with this group. And thank you all so very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
And
Thank you all for coming tonight.
and like I was saying, you are all welcome. Everyone is welcome here. We're a open, big family, and so we welcome you with open arms. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Darcy. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Darcy.